Good afternoon, financial professionals. Abby Fletcher here of E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to The Brew, building relationships every week. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you joining The Brew for the first time, we like to start the Brewcast by celebrating today's National Day for December 16th. First up, today is National Chocolate Covered Anything Day. This is the day we've all been waiting for, when you have those times where you've wondered, I wonder what this would taste like dipped in chocolate. Today, support a local chocolate shop or set up the fondue fountain. Bring out the fruit, pretzels, insects, however you do. And a fun fact, chocolate-covered cherries have been around since the 1700s. And it took until 1960 for the first chocolate strawberry to make the scene. Also, today is Barbie and Barney Backlash Day. This one's for you parents. This national day was created to deny Barbie and Barney's very existence. Today, parents get a rest from picking up toys and those famous sing-along songs. Families are encouraged to turn off those contagious children's songs today and resort to books or some other form of entertainment. So today, enjoy a chocolate dip treat while taking a break from the baby shark that may be on repeat in your homes. Today on The Brew, as part of our practice management series, we have E4's very own John Florance, who serves as Senior Vice President of Annuities. This will be an interactive brew today, and John will be sharing the one-page intentional business plan. Prepare to find your primary motivation and much success in 2021. Take a look at the chat box below. You'll find the file with the document with the one-page business plan attached there. I will also be keeping a lookout for questions while John is live, so feel free to use the chat box. Also, all attendees are in a drawing for a prize, and we'll be announcing the winner shortly. Thank you for tuning in, and without further ado, John, welcome. The mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Abby, and welcome to everybody who is here today. Fun fact that it's, you mentioned chocolate. Chocolate was actually a creation in Mexico and was brought to Europe in the 1500s from the Spanish conquistadors. So it was actually created by the Aztecs. Most people don't know that. It comes from the Nahuatl word for chocolatl, which got moved to chocolate and now chocolate. So there you go. Hey,
thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about the intentional one-page business plan. And this is something that I have been using over the years that I kind of just developed for myself as a way to keep me on track and keep me moving through the year that's coming up ahead. So getting into it, let me see if I can get my screen to shift. There we go. Every year about this time, you may be undergoing this yourself at the moment. Maybe you've already been through the exercise. Maybe you're doing it right now. Maybe it's on your list of to-do things, but most of us undergo some form of business planning. And over my years in business and working for both large corporations and small, I've been involved in all kinds of different business plans. Most of them are very extensive processes, involve the production of a really massive document with lots of detail and analysis in it. And then, unfortunately, most of those business plans end up something like this. A binder is created with a great document that sits at the bottom of a pile on your desk or in the corner of your office and never gets referred to again once that document is completed. I think we can all agree that business planning is an essential part of what we do to keep us moving forward. The question is how do you take the traditional form of that business plan and make something that's actually really useful to you? And that's where I came up with this idea a number of years ago of creating the one-page business plan. I call it the intentional business plan just simply because I want to differentiate between intentional and non-intentional. You take a look at this guy on an inner tube sort of going over the rapids. I think it's a little bit of an allegory for how maybe many of us feel about life in general. We're on the river is taking us in a direction, but it sometimes feels like we don't really have any control at all. That's sort of the non-intentional approach. We're just going with the flow. What I like to do is maybe bring some intentionality to that. And the intentionality in the case of the allegory of going down a river is giving yourself a paddle. So even though the current is taking you, you should be able to steer a little bit and maybe have a protection from some of the worst aspects of what can happen as you're navigating that course. And so that's what I mean when I say to be intentional in our business planning, that we're actually giving ourselves a little bit of direction instead of just simply going with whatever happens to us over the course of the coming year. So what is the one-page intentional business plan? It's very simply a template that I created that you can fill out very quickly. Typically, it takes me about 10 or 15 minutes at the most to do this, where we're identifying a motivation for ourselves for the year, putting a number around that, quantifying it, and then creating a benchmark that we can use to measure ourselves against that number throughout the course of the year. And then the rest of the plan is really simply just putting together a list of activities for both now and in the future that are going to help keep us on track to achieving whatever that number, whatever that benchmark is that you've established for yourself. So we're going to walk through each one of these things a little bit, and you can see just how easy it is to use. And hopefully this will be a tool that you can apply for your own life, for your own business as you move forward and we approach 2021. So before we jump into the nuts and bolts of it, I'd like to see if we can all agree that we are all in sales. If you're on this call and listening to this, probably some aspect of what you do in your life and your business is related to sales, even if it's not in your title or in your job description. And again, the point that I'm making here is that even if we're part of a support organization, your skills, you're bringing value to a company. That is something that you are selling to the organization that you're part of. Maybe you're a financial advisor and you are actually selling your practice. Maybe you're part of a team. Maybe you've developed a process. All of these things are things that we are presenting and communicating to other people and trying to have other people accept them. So we're all in sales. If you're truly a financial professional, then you may well be selling insurance, you might be selling annuities, you might be selling your advisory solution, mutual funds, or other services that your firm provides. So I do believe that one way or another, we're all sort of in the sales business. And because of that, we're usually given a number, some number that we have to achieve. Now, I know in my past experience, when I've worked for larger organizations, I end up being given a number. Hey, John, great job. You did 150 million in annuities last year. Now do 30% more next year. You know, and that to me, as great as it might be for the organization, isn't a motivation for me. So if it was always important for me in my capacity of whatever I was trying to achieve in the year was to try and identify what my personal motivation was that was going to get me moving toward that goal. I like to say, what is it that gets you out of bed every morning to do what it is that you do? Somebody else giving you a number or giving you a goal or giving you something isn't going to be your personal motivation. So as you look at sort of the pictures on the right-hand side of the slide here, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your passion. For me, that passion is sailing, and so I've got this dream of having a sailboat and going around the world someday. Maybe it's, you know, you wanted to buy that income property, or maybe it has nothing to do with money at all, and your passion, your motivation is about helping other people. Whatever it is, all I want you to do at the top of this exercise is identify what your personal motivation is in the coming year. What's going to drive you forward and get you out of bed? So the next thing is once you know that motivation is to actually begin to quantify it. What I mean by quantifying it is putting some kind of a number around it. Maybe that number could be what, how much pre-tax income do you hope to earn for the year? Or maybe if you're running a financial practice, maybe your goal or your number is going to be related to the total number of assets under management or the number of households that you want to serve in the coming year. Maybe in my case, it's the number of annuities or the quantity of annuities being sold. Maybe it's something as simple, if you're not in an official sales capacity, maybe the quantification is the amount of college tuition you set aside this year for your child. Whatever the motivation is, we want to try and quantify that in the next aspect here and just put a number to it. The next phase from developing the number is breaking that number down into a measurable benchmark that we can use. So when I talk about a benchmark, the benchmark can be calculated in lots of different ways, and I'll give you a few examples here. Let's say your example, this actually was my benchmark a few years ago when I was working for one of the larger corporations. I wanted to have a pre-tax take-home pay of $1 million that year. Well, in order for me to identify my benchmark, I needed to reverse engineer that number so that it was something meaningful to me. And the way that I figured out how to do that is I said, I'm going to work only 42 weeks this year. I was fully planning to take 10 weeks off during the course of that entire year. And also that my work week would be comprised of only 4 days, not 5. Why not 5? Because the truth is, on Fridays, I usually took that time off to do things around the house or do something personal for myself, or maybe take a trip with my wife, and, take a 3-day weekend, whatever it was. But I knew that I was really working a full 4 days and not the 5. And I also knew that my work day was really typically about 9 or 10 hours a day, as opposed to maybe the typical 8. Again, these numbers are all your numbers. You put in whatever works for you, whatever you know to be true for yourself. So you take all those numbers, you multiply them out, and you come up with a work unit. So 42 weeks times 4 days a week times 9 hours a day means that I have 1,512 hours in that particular year in order to drive that $1 million paycheck. Well, when you divide that out, that means that every hour of work, my benchmark was $661. Now, what do you do with that benchmark is really the question. It's not something that you're going to beat yourself over the head with, or you feel guilty about, or that you're using it. It's simply a benchmark. It's a guideline to keep you focused on the bigger goal of attaining what your number is for the entire year. Here's a different example of calculating a benchmark. Maybe it isn't the amount of money you take home. Maybe you're building a practice and you want to say, hey, I want to get 20 million in net new assets coming into my business this year. Well, once again, figure out how many weeks are you working, how many days are you working. Maybe you don't even know how many hours a day, so you can break it down to a daily goal. So 48 weeks, 5 days a week that you're working, and it's 240 weeks this year that are going to be dedicated to making that happen. It's going to boil down to about $83,000 a day in order to achieve that target. I'll give you another example of kind of reverse engineering a number. Another approach at it would be to say, hey, I want that pre-tax take-home income, and I want that number to be $150,000 this year. Well, how do I figure out what I actually have to do in order to get that 150,000? Well, if I know that my average annuity compensation is 4.5%, divide those numbers out, gets me to 3.3 million. My average annuity transaction is about 85,000. So calculating these numbers out tells me that I need 39 or 40 annuities to get to that kind of income. If I'm working 45 weeks this year, it means I'm going to have to do a little bit shy of 1 annuity a week. All this is, again, is a guideline, a benchmark. Why a benchmark? Because we know life happens, right? No sooner do we have a plan that the plan gets thrown off, whether you get to the office and the phone is ringing off the hook, or you look at your email inbox and you got 110 messages waiting for you, or your child is sick, or you forgot to calculate in the fact that you spend 10 hours a week coaching Little League. All of these things are life, and it's what serves to derail us from the plans that we make. So the benchmark helps to simply keep you on track and to decide whether the time that you're spending productively in work is getting you to the number that you're trying to achieve in life. So that's all we do with the benchmark. So once we have our motivation established, we know what our annual number is, we know what our benchmark measuring unit is, we can then start taking a look at how we're going to make that happen. And this breaks down into really simple things. One, we're going to look at our daily, what we call our now activities. So what is it that I'm going to do every single day as part of a process that is going to get me to attain the number that I'm looking to get? And all I'm asking you to do is pick 3 things. You don't have to think really hard about them. What are the things that create the most impact in your business today? As an example, maybe it's making 10 outbound client calls every day. Maybe it's generating 1 case or 1 proposal for a client every day of the week. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, I just need to be better at time blocking. Maybe I could segment my day so that when I come into the office or I sit down at my desk, I'm going to do email followed by phone calls, followed by meeting prep and some meetings in the middle of the day. And then I wrap my day up with more calls and follow up on any last emails. And then I'm out of there by 5:30. That could be the process that you put in place. But whatever your process is, make it a process, and the process should be doable and repeatable, something that you can just do over and over and over again in order to make that happen. So those are your now activities. In addition to now activities, we got to fill the pipeline. And so filling the pipeline means looking at your future activities. In this section, I actually do 4 things. I kind of think of my future activities as a quarterly pipeline, if you will. So might be something that is going to help yield fruit or help to get me to my number, not immediately necessarily, but something that happens over the next 3 to 6 to maybe even 9 months out. So what could those be as an example? Well, maybe, I've always meant to get around to launching a social media program so that, people might be able to know more about me and kind of do some subtle marketing in that way. Maybe it's sending out a quarterly snail mail campaign to my prospects. Maybe it's doing a series of event marketing events, whether it's client appreciations or prospecting events, and do a series of those over the course of the year. These things don't give you results immediately, but give you results maybe down the line and help to fill that pipeline. So those are just some examples. 3 or 4 things there. So we identify our now, we identify our future, and then of course we have to get around to making sure that we're sharpening our tools. I like to tell that story. Many of you have probably heard it before. 2 lumberjacks, Jeff and Jim, walk into a beautiful valley, completely tree lined, and they decide between the 2 of them they're going to clear it. One's going to take the east side of the valley, and one's going to take the west side of the valley. So they go at it, hammer and tongs, chopping away there. About 2 hours into it, Jeff looks across the valley and he sees that his buddy Jim is not miles, but a lot further ahead. And not only that, but he's sitting down, he's resting. Okay, I better do a little bit more. So he starts chopping away all the harder and working all the harder. And a couple of hours later, he looks over and Jim is even further ahead than he was before, and he's still sitting down. Well, now Jeff's exasperated and he crosses the valley, goes over, he says, what the heck is going on here? I'm working my tail off trying to chop down trees over here. Every time I look, you're sitting down and you're ahead of me. What the heck's going on? He says, Jeff, I got to tell you, I'm not sitting down resting. I've been sharpening my axe. So this is the point, right? In order for us to really make progress, we've got to make sure that our tools are sharp all the time. It's very easy to kind of get stale and dull in this. And so what are the 3 things that you're going to do to keep yourself sharp in the business, to improve yourself as a professional? Maybe it's enroll in the designation program. Maybe it's doing quarterly meetings with a company like E4 to learn what's working with other advisors or get best practice ideas, sort of like what we're doing right now. Maybe it's find a mentor or be a mentor. Whatever those things are that's going to help to improve you, pick 3 of them. And last on this, it's finding balance. Just like everything, we can't dedicate all of our time and energy to simply making that number happen. In order to strengthen ourselves, we need to be able to recharge, have a life there. So pick 3 things that you're going to do personally to kind of recharge yourself, whatever those things might be. Is it getting exercise on a more regular basis? Is it because you like to read, make a list of those 10 books and actually read them this year? Is it be present at home with your wife, with your family, with your friends, not be constantly distracted by what's going on at work? Figure out what those things are, just make a quick list of them, and then make sure that you're doing those things going forward. The very last part of all of this is if you completed the 1-page plan, it's to keep it real. And the way that we keep it real is to make it visible. Remember that very first slide, I showed that business plan tucked under. And that's typically what happens with business plans. With this business plan, because it's 1 page, you can tack it to your wall or you can stick it in your pencil drawer at your desk right in front of you. Wherever you're going to be able to see it, that's going to be a reminder for what your motivation is, what your number was, your benchmark, and what were the things that you were going to be doing so that you stay on track with this throughout the year. The other part of it is update it as necessary, right? Preview, review, update as things change. Because you know what? Maybe what we thought was going to work isn't working, and we might need to update those things as we go along. So there you have it. That's my 1-page intentional business plan. It's very simple. It's very effective. It's something I've been using for the past 10 or 15 years of my career, and I do it every year. And I'm about to, as soon as we get done with this call, make sure that I have mine completed for 2021. So do that for yourself. We did provide an example for you. It's in the chat box, so you can download that and save it. It will also be attached to the recording of this, so you can go onto our website and be able to pull it down if you want it. Again, don't look at that as a fixed format. This is something that you can adapt. So whatever works for you is just keep it simple. Don't spend a ton of time on it, and make it real and make it relevant to you personally. So go out and make your number happen in 2021, and we at E4 will be here to help make all of that a reality for you as well. So I thank you for your time. My name is John Florance. As Abby said, I'm the Senior Vice President for Annuities here at E4. If there are any questions or anything that anybody would like to discuss, be happy to entertain those at this time. And if not, I turn it back over to Abby. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, John. Very informative and inspirational. Thank you. We do have some questions from the audience. I've also opened up the line if anybody has any questions that weren't chatted to me. This one coming from Steve Walker, John.
Yeah.
How often throughout the year do you review your own business plan to track results? Weekly, monthly, quarterly?
I like to do it on a quarterly basis. And so I have two different things, to be honest, Steve. And there is a formal business plan. And right now at E4, we're in the process of doing that. And we will all have that. And that's something that we're going to be using as a business tool for us. But in addition to that, I look at this one-page intentional as my personal business plan. So at the very least, it's going to be quarterly, but because I keep it in a visible place, so it's in my office, it's usually tacked up to the wall, I can see it. And so I can update that as frequently as I need to. If I feel like I'm getting off track, or maybe my number was wrong initially, or maybe, the activities that I had put down for myself aren't getting the job done, then I can revise that on the spot. So there's no rule to it, but I would say you want to look at it at least quarterly.
Excellent, great question. Any other questions from the audience? Well, as John mentioned, this document will be posted on the Brew blog, so feel free to share this document as well as the Brew with others that you feel might be benefiting from a plan like this. John, now is the time for the drawing. I'm going to ask for a number from you, sir. 1 to 23.
I was born on the 13th, so let's make it 13.
Okay, number 13. That is a lucky one. Who's the winner? Who's the winner? John Walsh, Tom Walsh. Congrats, sir. Be on the lookout for a coffee card coming your way from all of us here at E4. Also, thanks for joining. Next week, there isn't going to be a Brew Friends because we'll all be shredding gifts and in the Christmas spirit, but we will be back on December 30th with a fabulous brew showcasing the top 3 insurance solutions for 2020. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for joining.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.